Okay, so now we have a couple of exercises here, and they are going to take some time. We have a couple of points, not that, only 4 exercises really, not that much. So the question number 1 is: a point is on the x-axis. What are its y-coordinate and z-coordinate? So you have a point on the x-axis. On the x-axis, you want to know the y-coordinate and the x-coordinates, y and z-coordinates, I'm sorry. So if your point is on the x-axis, basically, if this over here is the y-axis, and if this over here is the z-axis over here, then the x-axis would be over here, and this would be the x-axis. So as you can see, if your point is on the x-axis, you will have 0 intercept on the y-axis, 0 intercept on the z-axis, meaning that you see over here, if your point is on the x-axis over here, if your point is along the x-axis, your y-coordinate is 0, your z-coordinate is 0. So that means that basically the perpendicular distance of the point from this plane, from the YZ plane, there is some distance over there, and that is the x-coordinate of your point. Otherwise, there is no other distance over here. So what that means is that the point being on the x-axis, basically the y-coordinate would be 0 and the z-coordinate would be 0. 12.1. Now, if a point is on the xz plane, if the point is on the xz plane, what can you say about its y-coordinate? So if the point is on the xz plane, of course the y-coordinate is 0, because, well, the point is simply on the xz plane, meaning that this orange plane over here, and you can see that if the point is on this plane, of course you have 0 basically intercept on the y-axis, so the y-coordinate is going to be 0. So the next question that we have is you basically have this point over here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you want to name the octant in which this point lies. So the octant in which this point lies, you can see that x, y, z are all positive. So that means that you are in the first octant. And the first octant is basically, if I take this as z prime, if I take this as y prime, and if I take this as O and this as x prime, you are going to be, the first quadrant would be this quadrant up here, which is basically XO, the first quadrant up here, XOYZ. I'm sorry, octant X OYZ, or the first octant. the first octant, or the first octant. So question number 3, the first octant. Now if you have some point, if you have some point like, for example, 4 comma -2 comma 3 over here, comma 3. So this point, as you can see, the x coordinate is positive. X is positive. That means that you are well, in basically to the front of the basically to the front of YZ plane. To the front of YZ plane. And your y coordinate is negative. Your y coordinate is negative. That means that you are to the left of the XZ plane. To the left of the XZ plane. And your z coordinate is positive. So to the front of the YZ plane and to the left of the XY plane. So then basically right now the only two options that you have is basically the so these two octants over here, which are to the front of YZ plane on the left. Now since your z is positive, then you're going to end up here, which is basically 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So that's the fourth. That is the fourth octant. And the fourth octant is basically this octant over here, this one over here. So that is 1. The one on the basically on the back would be 2, to the right, to the left would be 3, and this one would be 4. So that is the fourth octant. Number 2, the fourth octant. Okay, so the next one is the point is 4 comma -2, 4 comma -2, -5, 4 comma -2, -5. So your x is positive, your y is negative, and your z is negative. So since your x is positive, you are to the front of the YZ plane. You are to the front of the YZ plane. Since your y is positive, you are to the right of the XZ plane. To the right of the XZ plane. And so then, since z is positive, then you are to the top of the basically XY plane. That means that if you do the math over here, but of course we are doing math, but if you do the math over here, you are in the no, not there. So your x is positive, which means that you're to the front of the YZ plane, but your y is negative. That means that you are basically over here to the left and front, to the left and front, and then since you're to the top of the this is also negative, so you are to the bottom of, what happened over here? You are to the bottom of, there's something wrong in here. That means that you are to the bottom of the XY plane. So I have to do this again, I'm sorry. So the front of the YZ plane, and then to the right of the XZ plane, to the right of the no, this is the left. I apologize for this. So since your Y is negative, you are to the left of the XZ plane, and then the front left, and then to the bottom of the XY plane, then you will end up over here in this basically in this XOY prime Z prime, XOY prime Z prime octant, which is basically down here, XOY prime Z prime, which is down here, which is basically the eighth octant. So that is that. So the next point that we have is, you have, this one was 4, -2, -5, 4, 2, -5, 4, 2, -5. So this is the y-axis, this is the the z-axis, and this is the x-axis. This is the x-axis. So now your x is positive. Your x is positive. That means that you are to the front of the YZ plane. Your y is positive. Your y is positive, so you are to the right of the XZ plane, and your z is negative, so that means that you are to the bottom of the XY plane. To the bottom of the XY plane. And so basically this is what we said so far, is you're to the front of the YZ plane, to the right of the XZ plane, and then to the bottom of the XY plane. So you will end up at basically the fifth one. Basically you will end up right over here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that is the fifth one. So that is the fifth octant. That is the fifth octant. So if you have -4, 2, -5, this point over here, then basically you have, so this is the y-axis, this is the z-axis, and this is the x-axis. So your x is negative. X is negative, that means that you are, this is the x-axis. That means that you're to the back of the YZ plane. That means that you're to the back of the YZ plane. And then your y is positive. That means that you are to the right of the XZ plane. xz plane, and your z is negative, that means that you're to the bottom of the xy plane. Bottom of xy plane. XY plane. And what that means is that you're to the back of the YZ plane, back there, and right of the XZ plane, right of the XZ plane, and then bottom of the XY plane, so you will end up back there, bottom. So that is basically from the top. That means that from the top, this is from the top, and from the starting from here, from the top, from this octant over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That is the 6th octant. That is the 6th octant. -4 to -5. -4 to -5. Now, if you are at -4 to -5, now if you are at -4 to 5, this point, over here, x, y, and z, so your x is negative. That means that you're to the front of the YZ plane. YZ plane. And basically both x and both y and z are positive. So y positive, you'll end up to the right of the zx plane, and then to the top of the xy plane, so you'll end up over here. That is the first octant. And then the next point that we have is basically -4 to 5, -3, -1, (6). So your x is negative, meaning that you'll end up back there, behind the YZ plane, and then y is -1, which is a negative number, so you will end up to the left of the xz plane, and the z is positive, so back there, so that would be 1 to the third octant. The third octant. If you do a couple of these, you will get the hang of it. It's not that complicated. If you are at -2, -4, -7, so all the three basically components are negative, so you will end up back there, and to the left, and to the bottom, so you are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be the 7th octant. 7th octant. So I start from here. So the first one, let me check my answers here. 8, 5, 6, 2, 8, 5, 6. There has to be a 2. Okay, so there's something wrong here, but this is right, and this is right. Okay, so about this one, so your x is negative. Your x is negative, that means that you will end up back there, behind the YZ plane, and then both of these are positive. So you to the right and to the right and to the top, right and top, so that would be 2. That must be 2. 6, 2, 3. 6, 2, 3. That is right. 2 is right. Okay, so that is basically that. Now there is a couple of things you want to fill in the blanks. Let me write these sentences over here. The x-axis and y-axis taken together determine a plane known as, so the x-axis and the y-axis taken together determine a plane known as, well, of course, the x-axis and the y-axis taken together determine a plane known as the xy plane. It's pretty simple. It's the horizontal plane that we have. And the coordinates of points in the xy plane are of the form, the coordinates of the points on the xy plane. On the xy plane are of the form, so on the xy plane, basically what you have is basically over here, so this is y, this is x, and this is z. So if you are on the xy plane, that means that your z is equal to 0. You are on the xy plane. So that would be xy 0. That would be xy 0. And the coordinate planes divide the space into 8 octants. 8 octants. The coordinate planes divide the space into 8 octants. And this is question number 4, xy plane, xy 0 and 8 octants. Okay. So here we have no problems. So the next thing that we need to do here is distance between 2 points. And we need to basically derive a formula. And then we have some exercises, section formula, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.